Aloha and welcome. In this section, we're going to be talking about malware. We're going to be talking about specifically the spread, block, and spy type. So let's go ahead and open up our textbooks. We're going to be in chapter 1.8, malware, spread, block, and spy. So the first thing we're going to talk about here are viruses, viruses and worms, actually. So the first type is the virus. And a virus, I remember viruses from when I was in college. In my first year in college, we had a lab that I was in charge of. So on Friday nights and Saturdays, I would go down to the lab and I would be in charge of babysitting the lab. Basically, anybody would come in and use our office. Back then it was like Microsoft, Excel, Word, stuff like that. Anybody that wanted to use that could use our systems there. So everyone would work on their work. And at the end of the day, I would be closing up the lab and we'd do a scan. And I started seeing these things that I'd never heard of, and they were viruses. So I'd have two or three different types of viruses showing up, and we would have hundreds, if not thousands, of infections on our systems. And I would take, hours to clean everything up. So that was my first experience with viruses and learning kind of what they did. So a virus, it's a type of malware where we talked about in our last lesson, we said it's malicious software. So this malware, what it does is it self-replicates. So generally what happens is you've got an infection mechanism like email. That's how the your thing is going to initially get into a system. So if you click on something and it puts a virus on your system, usually what happens is that virus it's going to spread and it's going to consume system resources, and that's why you call it a virus. It's kind of like when you get a virus yourself. It gets into you. You're the host for it, and then you spread it to it spreads within your body. So that's kind of what a virus does. So it's going to a virus is going to attack usually its host, which is files. And if it's a certain type of file, it will start replicating to different files that it knows how to infect. And that could be exe files. Now it's PDF files can be can get viruses and things like that. So the attacker that's using this, they may want to delete, corrupt, alter, or steal data. Back in the old days, way back in the 90s, my recollection of it was that it was just it wasn't doing anything malicious. It was just trying to spread itself. So we would have all these infections across thousands of files, and at the end of the night, we just have to sit there and repair and delete and get rid of them. And for a lot of these, what we were ending up doing is replacing the original files for it. So if it was an executable for Microsoft Word, the I think they would I think the software itself would fix the I don't know if it actually replaced the executable or if it just removed the virus code itself from it. But yeah, that's how the viruses work. That's how traditional viruses work. Then you've got newer ones like fileless viruses, and they don't require a host. So viruses normally attach to a file, and whenever you run that file, it wakes it up, and then it goes and it infects other files. So that's how viruses generally work. But then you have more modern ones. You have the fileless virus, and those don't require a host. What happens is fileless virus gets into your memory. And then after it's in, same way, it comes in through an email or something like that. You click, injects it into memory. Now it's running in memory. So you're not going to detect it if you've got malware software and it's running, it's not going to find it in the infected files. It's not going to find it there because it's in your memory. So it's injected directly into memory and it corrupts programs like PowerShell, and it can run malicious commands that way. So when we think about that, on the one hand, if you've got a traditional virus that's attached to files, you're going to have to clean up those files. But if you have one that's just in memory, then the good news is you can get rid of that simply by turning off your computer and restarting it. So now it's no longer going to be in memory and it hasn't been saved off on disk. So it's not going to, start. It's going to be whatever, if you go and click on that link again, that you originally clicked on, that could reintroduce it. But for the most part, the fileless virus, even though it can do horrible things, once you reset your computer, it should be out of your system. The other type is a worm, and worms are pretty cool. The first known instance of a worm, I think, goes back to like 1971 with the creeper virus. The most important one, I would say, was probably in 1988 or so. There was a guy named Robert Tappan Morris, I believe his name was. He's gone on to be a reformed criminal, and he was a student actually. Can't remember. I think he was a student at Cornell when this happened, but he wrote a network. It wasn't a virus; it was considered a worm. And what it would do was it would go out there and it would look for vulnerable systems on the network. And back then, there weren't a lot of computers on the network. They believed that there was only about 100,000 computers altogether connected on the early what we call the internet back then. So he tried to get this piece of software that would copy itself to all computers that weren't that were vulnerable to it. So it was very fascinating what it did. And back then he wasn't doing a lot of malicious things with it. His intention wasn't malicious to delete things. He was just trying to spread and see how far he could spread it. So what he would do is he would have it ask a system, "Hey, are you infected?" And if it wasn't infected, uh, he would install the worm on there. But then he got worried that maybe some people, maybe a system administrator would figure out what was going on and have it give a false positive and have it return the "Hey, yes, I'm infected," so it wouldn't infect it again. So he decided that in 14% of the cases where it did say that I'm not infected, he was going to have it, reinfected anyway, or he'd have the worm spread to it. And that was kind of interesting because he accidentally made it too powerful and it replicated way too much. So it brought a lot of the systems down. So they said, I think about 10% of all the computers on the network connected to the internet at the time were having trouble and went down. So he was the first. The reason why this case is the most is one of the to me one of the most important cases was this is the first time anybody ever got arrested on a felony charge for making a virus or a worm or something like that. So this is the first case of one. So anyway, getting back to what a worm is a type of malware that self-replicates. It replicates on its own and spreads to other devices over a network. So the worm is going to exploit a vulnerability in those systems. So if the systems haven't been patched, don't have the latest security updates or whatever, and it has a vulnerability, the worm is theoretically going to try to exploit that vulnerability and get into that system. And once it's in that system, it's going to spread to other systems. It's going to look on the network, see what else it can find. So, you think about this, you can have multiple worms, you can have multiple nodes in your network that are looking for other systems to see if they can infect. You can have some that are trying to infect the same ones at the same time, but the network traffic is going to increase, through all this activity too. So yeah, so that also makes it a little bit more visible, and people that are network administrators can see, gee, what's all this activity going on? What kind of things are happening here? And that's kind of how you find out and try to mitigate the the infections at that point. But anyway, the worm it's gonna spread to vulnerable devices that are found, and the attacker might use worm to deliver other malware. It could also steal data or open up a backdoor onto the infected device itself. So we're going to look at a participation activity here. It's going to show you the difference between traditional viruses, viruses, and worms. So with the first one, you've got a traditional virus that's going to spread to vulnerable files or programs on a computer. So, hey, you've got this email, you click on it, and it's going to, go ahead and infect different, things and files in these folders. Then, once you activate the infected file, once you run it, the virus is going to run, and then it's going to execute malicious commands like, let's say, in PowerShell. It's not always PowerShell. It's just giving PowerShell as an example here, but it could do other things as well. Then we've got the fileless virus, and that's going to be the same way. You're going to open up an attachment or something in an email. It's going to go into memory instead of going out here, like over here, to attach to files. It's just going to run in memory. And then from memory, it's going to do things like delete these files. It'll call up a PowerShell or something. But again, it doesn't have to be PowerShell. Then you've got a worm. Worm, same thing, comes in, you open up your email, you run something accidentally, then it's going to spread it to every computer that it can find on the internet that is vulnerable. So over here, which type of malware is described in each statement? Let's do one. Attaches to a legitimate file or program. What is going to be that? That is not a fileless virus because a fileless virus wouldn't need a host. It's not a worm because a worm is going through the network. So traditional virus would be the one here. Yes, so go ahead and do the others on your own. And here again, I love this real world examples. Uh, Sadly, I know most of these. So virus, the first example of a good virus is the Michelangelo virus, and that would infect a device and it would lay dormant until March 6th. You know what March 6th is? The hints in the name, Michelangelo virus. It's a birthday. So on March 6th, the virus would overwrite the storage device's first 100 sectors with zeros. So that's around where your master boot record is. So if your computer's master boot record is gone, you can no longer boot it. So that's a real nasty thing to have on there because it's just sitting there like a time bomb waiting for March 6th. And then, yeah, bye-bye computer. But of course, we all back up our entire computers and we're all not going to be susceptible to that, right? Um, yeah. So fileless virus, a good example of that is the Operation Cobalt Kitty, and that targeted a global corporation using a fileless virus. The employees received a spear phishing email with a link to a fake Flash installer that executed malicious commands through the PowerShell. Then an example of the worm, well, there's the creeper worm that I told you about from 1971. There's the Morris worm from 1988-ish. And then here's a good, more recent example, the I love you worm. That one spread to over 10 million computers through a malicious email attachment. When a target opened the attachment, the worm damaged files and spread by copying itself to all of the user's Outlook contacts. So that's kind of nasty. What I've always wondered is why is it that we don't have good guys out there that are writing worms that go out there, find all the computers with vulnerabilities, and then it goes in and fixes those vulnerabilities. That would be cool. Or ones that went around and said, "Hey, you're not patched. Let's go and patch you." Things like that. That would be a nice, that's not really wide hacker. That's going to be gray hacker. But I always wondered why we don't see more cases like that. Then we have the spread type of malware, and that's going to be bots. Bots are a hideous thing. I don't hear about it so much now as I did maybe 10 years ago. 10 years ago, they were everywhere. You would hear about Microsoft. Microsoft has a massive they have a big cybersecurity team that does all kinds of great work in bringing down botnets and things like that. So I used to hear a lot more out there about botnets and different botnets being discovered and taken down, things like that. But bots are basically devices that have been infected with malware that enables an attacker to remotely control that device. Usually, that bot is going to be it's going to be controlled by what we call command and control, a CNC server. So out on the internet somewhere, there is a server and that server is going to be sending commands to these systems. And it's going to have to be at a regular time or something like that, so they can hook up because your bot's going to have to go out there and get the command. I guess they could push it to it as well, so it could go either way. But what's going to happen is that command and control server, it's going to send the messages to the bots. And the bots, if you have a large number of them, you've got a botnet essentially, and those can do coordinated large scale attacks. I mentioned DDoS attacks, the distributed denial of service attacks. That's the kind of thing that you'd want to use for that, a botnet. So a botnet out there. There's one, I forget what it's called, like the low ion, I can't remember the exact title, but the low orbit ion cannon or something like that is a famous uh, type of botnet that you can use, and you would aim that at your target. It would, and essentially you could just bring it to its knees by doing a denial of service, a distributed denial of service attack. But this is how you do it through a botnet. So the botnet, many different computers, all infected, waiting to hear from their command and control server that's going to tell them, "Hey, attack this system." Another type thing that's out there is crypto malware. This is kind of a recent thing since cryptocurrency came about. Um, People may have heard about cryptocurrency mining. So you've got things like Bitcoin, Dogecoin, all these different things where you need computing power to actually do work. And if you do enough work, you get a fraction of a coin. And that fraction of the coin may or may not actually pay for all the wear and tear on your computer plus the electricity it takes to do all that work to get that amount of cryptocurrency. So one thing that you can do to make it more economical is to go out there and have a botnet that essentially does the cryptocurrency mining for you. So Crypto malware is a type of malware that's going to use a target computer's computing resources to mine cryptocurrency. So the way cryptocurrency is done is if you sign up to help do all the complex math that's involved in doing cryptocurrency transactions, you kind of say, okay, you can use it on my computer. Here's the software. When my computer's not busy, it'll do a little bit of the calculations and just give me a little sliver of, a Bitcoin eventually. So that's how it works. So what this crypto malware does is it goes out there and it takes all the, the bots that it has and it has them do crypto mining. So it's doing all this cryptocurrency mining. It's really resource intensive. So yeah, so an attacker may deploy the crypto malware to a large botnet so that it can increase its profits that way. So the attacker can then use the computing resources across the entire botnet for a larger payoff, and he's not going to have to pay for the extra electricity or the wear and tear on all the computers. So yeah, that's a not so. It's to me when I look at the scope of things that are bad, yes, that's bad, but it's less bad than some of the other things I've seen, but it's still highly illegal. So keep that in mind. So here in our participation activity, we've got an example of a botnet DDoS attack, the distributed denial of service attack. Remember, a denial of service is hitting availability, that's what happens when you try to bring down a website, for example. So we're going to start here. An attacker spreads bot malware through spam email. So the email goes out to all these computers. When a user opens the email, the computer is infected with the malware and becomes a bot. Each bot is connected to a CNC server, the command and control server. So we click next, and the attacker wants to attack a target server by flooding the server with traffic. So the attacker controls the bots to the CNC server up here, the command and control server, and it's going to send that message out saying start attack. So he tells the command and control server to send out the start attack, sends it to all the different bots. And then what happens is this poor target server over here gets blasted by all these different these zombies out there. So the point of it is to overload the server with this flood of traffic, and it brings it down. So you can go through these in a botnet. A bot is, and then you can select. These are easy enough. I'll just have you do this on your own. Again, great. We've got real world examples. So botnet here. Botnet in 2009, the spam botnet Cutwhale contained 1.5 million bots and sent 51 million spam emails every minute. So think about that. It had 1.5 million computers out there that were infected, and nobody figured it out. And they sent out 51 million spam emails every single minute. That's crazy. So the next one here, crypto malware botnet in 2017, the Smomiru botnet was used to mine $2.3 million in cryptocurrency. That sounds like a lot of money, but you would think that if you had a massive botnet, if it was like Cutwhale up there, which had 1.5 million bots on it, 2.3 million bucks is only like almost $2 per system. That doesn't seem like a very yeah, it doesn't seem like a very lucrative thing, but $2.3 million, that's nothing to sneeze at, I guess. Uh, it's better than what we're paid over here, so sure. So the next type of malware we're going to talk about is block malware, and that's a good example is ransomware. Ransomware is nasty. It's nasty, nasty, nasty stuff. So ransomware, what that does is it denies access to computer files and then demands a ransom to people in order to release the files. So this is so bad because what's going to happen is when you're infected with ransomware, it's going to essentially encrypt all of your files and it's going to pop up a message saying, hey, your files have been encrypted. You're going to have to buy some Bitcoin and send it to us here. And that's going to, if you do that, we're going to give you the encryption, the key that's going to let you de-encrypt all your files. And you don't know if they will actually send you that key or not. You're trusting a person that's inherently not trustworthy, and you're going to send them money. And some people have paid it and gotten the keys. Some people have paid and never gotten the keys. So either way, yeah, you're taking a chance when you pay that ransom. But for some people, if that's got all your kids' pictures on it and everything else, and $300, yeah, 300 is a lot, but it's Yeah, I've got all my memories on that thing. And what's even more insidious, sometimes these ransomware malware, they can go out and find all your attached network devices that may have like hard disks. Like if you have a network attached storage, it can go out there and encrypt everything on there too. So even if you have those backups that are regularly done in your system, it can go and encrypt all that and hold that ransom. So these things are pretty nasty. So we'll go ahead and run the start thing here just to show it. It's a little two-step one. So user clicks a malicious link, click on it here. Hey, free stuff. We all fall for free stuff. So the computer is now infected with ransomware and the user's files are encrypted. Yuck. So then the computer displays a ransom message from the attacker. They're demanding 300 bucks in exchange for the decryption key. So yeah, you have to click there to purchase the decryption key. And yeah, so it's a bad process. If people didn't pay it, eventually these things would go away. But yeah, the bottom line is people have a lot of valuable information that they just don't want to lose, and therefore, yeah, nobody's willing to jump on that grenade to save us all. So here we have a couple of questions here. You know, looking at this, so ransomware, what's that for? It's purely financial. They're not going for information. They're just going to get money out of you. So yeah, go ahead and look at this. You know, this one, I'll go ahead and answer this since I've already done the other one too. But Jesse's computer has been infected with ransomware. Jesse can gain access to the block data so you can decrypt it with the data with a key. That's true if you've paid your money or whatever you need to do to get it back. There was one hack where they were able to, I think it was Microsoft may have come up with a way of disinfecting it and getting it off of there without having to pay. But rebooting the computer is not going to do any good because, again, the files are all encrypted. You'll reboot it and you'll just probably go to the same message. Um, so yeah, so decrypting, yeah. So real world example, WannaCry. WannaCry is famous. So that ransomware was one of the nastiest ones out there. Encrypted user data and displayed a message demanding $300 worth of Bitcoin within 3 days. Infected over 230,000 computers, and the attackers received about 400,000 in ransom payments. It may have been WannaCry that somebody cracked. I can't remember off the top of my head if it was WannaCry, but one of the ransomware things out there, somebody did come up with a a fix for it, and they didn't have to pay, which is because when I look at 230,000, they only got 400,000. That's like a buck and change per person. Of course, not everybody paid, so you can figure that in. But I'm wondering if this is one where a lot of people were infected, but a lot of people got out with the free fix for it. I'm not sure if it might have been WannaCry. Anyway, one of the last ones here is spyware. Spyware has been around for a while. So spyware and keyloggers. Keyloggers are insidious, nasty little things. Spyware is nasty, but annoying more so than anything else. So spyware is the type of malware that's going to collect user data without the user's consent. So in the old days, spyware was used to look at what you're doing when you're browsing, see where you're going and everything, and then it would it would pop up all these pop-up ads, and it was so annoying. It would just pop up these ads all over the place, for things that it thought you might be interested in. And yeah, that happens in Google and other things already, but this was something that was doing it on top of, what you'd kind of agreed to by using Google. So um, other spyware can be used for nefarious purposes like gaining financial information or remotely accessing a webcam. That's scary stuff. Spyware may be included in bloatware. Bloatware, if you're not familiar with it, whenever you buy a new computer, it comes with something that people call it bloatware. Some people call it crapware because there's not a lot of value in it. These are actual terms that are used for it. So bloatware is unwanted software that's preloaded onto a new device by the device's manufacturer. The device manufacturer is going to get money. So if Intuit has, let's say, their TurboTax on there, like a trial version of it, they're going to pay the manufacturer, hey, we'll give you $5 a system if you put our software on there. And that way it looks like, hey, we're giving value. You can have this software on here for free. It's a demo version. And then, both parties, benefit in this way. So there's a lot of bloatware out there, and some of it may actually include spyware. So yeah, and that's gonna people don't like bloatware because it's consuming resources. It can also introduce vulnerabilities onto the device. So that's bad in general. Keyloggers, though, those are really nasty things, and that's malware that's going to record your keystrokes on the keyboard. So a keylogger can be used to gain your personal information, like your passwords, your credit cards, and then after it's done that, it's going to send it off to the hacker. But a keylogger is usually spread just like everything else that we've talked about here through a malicious link or an email attachment. So we're going to take a look at it right here. Fire this up. We see that Marley's computer is infected with a keylogger and spyware. The keylogger and spyware record information in hidden files. These are the hidden files right there. So Marley visits Amazon.com on a web browser. The spyware records the visit. Hey, they went to here. So I save that in the file. And then the keylogger records their username and their password when they log in. Nasty. And then the next thing is when Marley buys a desk lamp on Amazon, the spyware is going to record that purchase. So it knows also what kind of things you're interested in now. And then it's going to take all that data, the two hidden files here, and it's going to send it back to the attacker. So this is nasty stuff here. So I'll let you go through here on your own. It's kind of like the last one, but just use what we learned about that to figure out what spyware is looking for. Is it looking for information or is it looking for money? Again, some great real world examples here. Spyware, Hermitware spyware targets Android and iOS phones. Hermit can track calls and location, read text messages, access photos, and record audio. Then Keylogger, an example is the Snake Keylogger. It's spread through a malicious PDF attachment. When a user opened the attachment, the Snake Keylogger is installed and records the user's keystrokes. And then there's bloatware, and the Superfish visual discovery bloatware installed on some Lenovo PCs in 2015 was vulnerable to on-path attacks through HTTPS spoofing. If you don't know what an on-path attack is, it's basically somebody that's set up in the middle of the data connection, kind of like man in the middle. So it's going to be the stuff is going to go through them. So and then they would try to spoof the HTTPS connection. Yeah, you don't know HTTPS necessarily yet. This is just an encrypted channel that's used for your usually like browsers to be connecting to the web through I think it's port 443. So we'll talk about that stuff later. And now we've got our challenge activity here. We're going to hit start, select the attributes of a worm. So that one is going to be standalone app. Oh wait, standalone application. You check off the ones that you want here. I'll let you do this on your own actually, but what you're going to do is you're going to come in here and select all the ones that pertain to this. So if you miss some, let's say we just pick one, two of these here, you click check. It's going to tell you which ones are right and which ones it expected. And then when you go and you say next, it's actually going to go ahead. It's still going to be on one, but it's going to give you another one. It'll have different options here. So the neat thing is it knows all the different, it has a bunch of options of things that are attributes and things that aren't, and it's kind of mixing those up for you to try to do. So try to find all the attributes of a worm. And then when you get it right, you click on check. It'll bring you to the next one, which is 2 and then 3. So it's going to be asking you about the different things that we've talked about here. So that's it for the malware spread, block, and spy. Good luck with this. We'll see you in the next video. So if you have any questions on any of the material, as always, just send me an email, jsj3@hawaii.edu, and I'd be happy to help you out. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video. Aloha.